the one position group that truly has an immense amount of talent and depth in the 2023 NFL draft is cornerback, defensive back, safeties included. So, how do they rank? Who's tier one, tier two? Who should you know? What do they do? And what do they need to improve on? Are these guys scheme dependent? We'll discuss it next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout over with the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And as always, guys, I can't talk about championship things, rings, or anything else without having my boy, Mr. SEC at LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
It's the Locked On NFL Draft. Let's get locked in, DP, man. We're 3-4 days away from the NFL Draft, man. You know what we're doing, man. We're going through our positional rankings. Last week we did the offense, right? But now we got to go to the defensive side of the football, and we're starting with those cornerbacks, man. Well, the defensive backs in total, we're going to do the first two segments. We're going to go cornerbacks. Then the last segment, we're going to talk about some safeties, man, that's been fairly underrated in this draft class of DP. Man, we're going to go 1 through 5. You're going to read off your list. I'm going to read off my list. We don't know what the list look like. We may agree, we may disagree on some things, but that's why we're here to talk them through with you guys, man. So, DP, why don't we get started? Before we get started, DP, why don't you read them with one of our sponsors, man?
Yes, sir. This episode today is brought to you by BetterHelp. Guys, understand something. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on a journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. Keith, you said it. The top five of our top 10 quarterback rankings, man. And a lot of this is due to the grades that we have when we graded these players during the draft cycle. So, number one, of course, my boy down in Oregon, Christian Gonzalez, cornerback. Number two is cornerback out of Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. Number three, Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. Number four, Deontay Banks out of Maryland. And number five, Keely Ringo out of Georgia.
Okay, we have some. There we go. That's why we do this, right? Because we have a disagreement right off the top, man. Well, I went Christian Gonzalez 1. I went Devin Witherspoon 2, but I went Keely Ringo 3. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about Keely Ringo because he, quote unquote, got cooked versus Marvin Harrison Jr. and things like that. But listen, man, I'm buying into the tool set, man. I'm buying into the guy that runs a 4.3, jumps 40 inches. You put him in a specific scheme, he's going to thrive at DP. That's Keely Ringo, man. But there's Devin Witherspoon is who I want to talk about because there's been a lot of talk about him, but this is the first time I got eyes on him. I was able to really jump into his film, and I came away with question marks that I wasn't expecting to come away with. I view this now as Christian Gonzalez 1, and then a little bit of a gap, and then I get to Devin Witherspoon. That's how I kind of see this, DP, because when I watch Witherspoon, listen, you see a highly active, explosive, short area range athlete that's a physical tackler, will come downhill. But DP, listen, when we're talking about cornerbacks, man, I'm not drafting my cornerbacks because they're the best tacklers on the team, point blank period. I say that time and time again. I need you to be able to cover it. And what I see with Witherspoon is that there's still some area and room for development when you're talking about just putting him one-on-one, playing man-to-man. If he's on the backside of the formation with the XY receiver, then I'm not 100% comfortable with putting him in that situation day one.
No, I know exactly how you feel, and I see the same things you see, Keith. We talked about him recently, and it's just the fact that this young man is kind of I think that there's much upside for him in man-to-man coverage, as well as zone. I think that versatility with him.
That's what I see.
You talk about the tackling, and I think it was Prime. Coach Prime said that your shoulders are made for Hall of Fame jackets, not to tackle or something like that. I
I'm with
remember seeing a quote like that, and it was one of the craziest quotes. It was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. I got to get what you're saying, Prime. Prime wasn't a tackler himself, but he was one of the best cover corners of all time. With Devin Witherspoon, I agree with you though. With his tackling ability, I think the value is much more. It's greater in off coverage and zone where you play him off ball. I say give him give the receiver 5 yards of cushion, especially with so much RPO, usage in the league right now. Keith, the glance routes, the quick hitters, smoke screen, stuff like that. A guy like Devin Witherspoon who can kind of bait quarterbacks into taking those throws so that he can then play safety and knock your receiver, knock their block off a little bit and really, bring, he has that, and the phrase, right? Like separate ball from body on those glance routes, those slant routes, those quick end breakers. Him playing from depth and be able to trigger down to then play physical and strike in the mid region of the body of the receiver to separate and dislodge the ball rather than putting them in close proximity of press man to man. And his technique isn't truly refined right now. It's something that can be improved. But again, I think like his best ball right now is playing them more off coverage. So Keith, I like that. And I love the fact that you gave, we both stuck to what it is and with Keely Ringo and neither one of us allow anyone to change our perception on players. We watch the tape. We see what's coachable and what's not coachable, what's fixable and what's not.
Right.
With Keely Ringo, he's still one of the best corners in this class, man. Because at the end of the day, Keith, because I remember I called you after I went through some of these corners. I had already watched Keely back in January. So I got the Porter. I got the Brents. I got those companies. I'm like, bro, like the same things they talk about with Keely Ringo as being negatives, these dudes had the same issues. It's the same problems.
So let's pivot the conversation and jump straight into it, right? Because I went Keely Ringo 3, then I went Emmanuel Forbes, and then I went Joey Porter Jr. 5, right? So like from this conversation, you can derive like Keely Ringo and Joey Porter. I like the way it's looked, right? Keely Ringo got beat in the national spotlight, right? So you're talking about semi-national championship game, XYZ, so everybody see this, right? But when you watch Joey Porter Jr., and you watch his technique and what he does, it's some of the same issues, right? Like it's some of the same exact things. So some of the same issues that Keely has, Joey Porter has, right? And then you talk about the ball skill situation. And I can't blame everything for Joey Porter because I think he was towards the bottom as far as being targeted, right? Like the quarterback targeting wide receivers that he was covering. But there were, you wish that you had more than I think one interception over the past 2 years so I can buy into the ball skills. So with Joey Porter Jr., I had him coming in at number 5. And this is what this, man. I grouped Keely Ringo, I grouped Joey Porter Jr. into that group of guys that I just simply think they're best suited right now in cover 3 schemes, right? So you put them on the Sauce Gardner kind of, the route, the
Tariq Woolen.
Yeah, Tariq Woolen, those type of things. And if you do that, you should be able to get immediate high level play. Now, if you're in one of these schemes that's blitz heavy, right? Like you talk about possibly the New York Giants where they're going to blitz a lot and then they're going to play man-to-man on the back end, just lock up. Then I'm kind of nervous, right? Because both of these guys have opportunities to give up big players. So I thought that was one of the big takeaways that when I started ranking my board, like I said, from the top was Christian Gonzalez. I think he's the most complete corner. Then you get to Devin Witherspoon. I really like how fluid and explosive he is in tackling. But like I said, I don't care if my cornerback is not the best tackler in the world. I just need you to be willing. Just get in the way, right? Just slow the wide receiver down, slow the linebacker down, slow the running back down. And if we have like good pursuit players on our defense, they should be there, right? So that's my thing with cornerbacks tackling. And then, like you said, we kind of agree with Keely Ringo being in the top 5. Did you have Emmanuel Forbes in your top 5?
No, he's in the very next tier. I had Deonte Banks over Forbes because I really, really like Banks.
Okay, well, like Banks. Well, let's do this, man. We're about to transition into segment 2, and we already kind of gave a snippet of to the conversation of Emmanuel Forbes, Deonte Banks. So coming up next, man, into our next segment, we're going to get into these cornerback rankings 6 through 10, and then talk about those next tier of guys when you're talking about Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State and you're talking about Deonte Banks from Maryland.
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Guys, listen, I can tell you right now, I am an advocate for mental health and going to seek counseling and therapists. I worked in the mental health field myself. It really can help you just learn more about yourself, right? Not just your strengths. 'Cause I think we all know about your strengths, but it helps you learn about your weaknesses. And I've been under, I've seen therapists and counselors in my past, as well as working in that field, and it's such a big help to you guys. I'm telling you the benefits of being able to share and feel free to share your experience and have someone just with no bias be able to talk to you. With BetterHelp, you actually have the ability to not just start therapy, but instead of going into an office, BetterHelp allows you to, it's convenient. You can do it online. You can do it from home. It's flexible and it's suited to your schedule. Guys, all you have to do is just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So at the end of the day, discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Cornerback 6 through 10, Keith. But before we get into that, we just kind of talked about Deonte Banks, right? And I'm gonna tell you, Keith, when I watched this game, he was a guy in your region. I remember when a lot of the buzz came out, I asked him, like, Keith, this is one of the guys in your region. Let me know you get eyes on him. You came back like, man, I like this kid. Like I like his makeup. I like everything. I like what he brings to the table.
I guess to say a late bloomer, right, in the draft process. And I've got
100%.
like, hold on, we got us one.
Listen, and I'll turn on the tape, man. The physicality, 6 foot, I think it's around 200 pounds, explosive athlete, 4.36, I believe, in the 40. Explosive in terms of his vertical and his jumps. But just the physicality he plays with impress man coverage, Keith. And I loved his. Anytime you have a guy that's athletic as Deonte Banks, he understands that I can play trail technique and not have to panic. Where other guys who are more 4.45 to 4.55 type of athletes, right? Where that's still fast, you can't play trail unless you got a safety over the top because you don't have the recovery speed to stick with some of these guys. And when you're running a legit sub 4.4, mid 4.3s, you can get back in phase. And you can kind of manipulate and bait quarterbacks into throws. And you rarely see this young man get beat vertically in the passing game, Keith. I like his footwork, be able to mirror and match guys. And like I said, for a guy that's not 215 pounds or anything like that, he doesn't have 35-inch arms. When he gets his hands on guys, when he boxes at the line of scrimmage, you feel that. Like he's real physical too, Keith. In press coverage, man. I think that he can play some zone, but I think he's a pure press man type of corner.
Yeah, I like him. So the reasons I'll read off because he was still part of your top 5, right? So I'm gonna transition into 6 through 10 for me, and I had give me 1 second as I pull it up. I'm trying to count 3, 4, 5. I had Cam Smith, then I went Deonte Banks, then I went Julius Brents, then I went DJ Turner. And then I finished up with Keitrell Clark. So I had Deonte Banks on this list. He came in at 7 for me. And I'll talk about what's partly my concern, right? And for me, it was just identifying the football in the air, right? Like that was the thing. Like when he got down to like the, what you would say, the catch point, the contested situation, I didn't always feel like he got his head around in time. And then there's also times for me, like you talked about his speed, that he would be in phase, but he was still panic enough. And I thought he was real grabby at that moment, right? And in college, right, that's a 15-yard penalty. But in the NFL,
spot foul.
That can be 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. So that's something that he definitely could improve on. I'll tell you that who he reminded me of. Deonte Banks reminded me of Kaiir Elam from last year. That's who he reminds me because they're both bigger body corners. They're thick throughout. They have good speed. You watch them in the press man situations. They appear to have pretty good technique. Like I said, the only difference for me was with Kaiir to Deonte was that I thought that Kaiir was much more patient when the ball was in the air. And you've seen it, right? I think Kaiir Elam had 2 interceptions this past year as a rookie, right? Like playing for the Buffalo Bills, so playing high-level football. So Deonte Banks, that's the last thing that I want to see him improve on. But, man, this is a guy, like you said, you can put him in a man-to-man situation. So I'll read off my 6 through 10 again, then you can read off yours. So I went Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina. Then I went Deonte Banks, cornerback from Maryland. Then I went Julius Brents, was one of the more polarizing names in this draft from Kansas State. Then I went under the radar guy, DJ Turner from Michigan, a guy that ran a 4.26. Then I finished up all the way under the radar, but I know you guys heard me talk about him already. Louisville cornerback, Keitrell Clark.
Yeah, just real quick on everything you said about Banks. 100% agree. He gets in phase. He stays in phase. His panic comes when like you said, not locating the ball. And it's just something where it's like, as a cornerback coach, you got to teach him, bro, read the eyes and the hands of the other receivers, right? When you in phase, read them to know, okay, listen, he's turning around. He's looking back. His hands are rising up. Then now, if you're hip to hip, you're chest to chest, and you're squeezing to the sideline, you got to turn and look for the ball, because then you can start making plays, whether it's pass deflection or interception. But my 6 through 10, coming at number 6, I got Cam Smith as well. I have Julius Brents, Emmanuel Forbes, DJ Turner, and Keitrell Clark. So it's we have the same names, just the order's just a little different. But I'm happy to see my boy DJ Turner get love, Keith, because I've been on him, talking about him since the summer. You know what I mean? When no one really looked at that Michigan secondary and talked about the high-level play that he had put on film in 2021, and then to compound it with high-level tape this year as well. And I dare to say that some people may think it's a hot take, Keith. I think he's arguably in the top 3 in terms of pure man-to-man ability in this class.
No, I don't disagree with that, and I'm glad you went there, because I wanted to talk about that, especially with this class, right? So I think it's important to talk to our listeners when we talk about, cover 3 versus man-to-man corners. And that's what a lot of this class is. And I want people to understand that, listen, like, this is a good cornerback class, but make sure that your general manager is drafting the right cornerback for your scheme. Because if you put some of these guys like a Julius Brents, and we talked about Keely Ringo, Joey Porter, that those are 3 of the more polarizing names that can go really high in this draft, and they can perform really well, but make sure they're in the right scheme. Now you talk about our man-to-man corners, right? We talked about Christian Gonzalez, right? Emmanuel Forbes is a guy that we think can play man-to-man and play pretty well. Cam Smith, the cornerback from South Carolina, nobody talks about, but he definitely has the quick twitch and the fluid hips to be a man-to-man corner. Then you fall on DJ Turner from Michigan, right? Who's another good corner. At DP, I had no choice. I don't know why I kept thinking about this guy, because DJ Turner is kind of undersized, right? He's 5'11", 175 pounds, so not very big for a corner. And then, obviously people are going to talk about the tackling thing. And once again, I'm just getting away. That's all I care about, getting away. But he reminds me, and I don't know why I keep blanking on his name, man. The cornerback from Washington last year that I believe he went to the Chiefs in the first round. I'm blanking. Trent McDuffie. And I think Trent was a much more physical player, but everybody wondered if Trent McDuffie would go in the first round because his measurables. I think he had really short arms. He ran okay, right? And in height, I think he might have been 5'11" also. Like, he definitely wasn't 6 foot. He might even been 5'10". But I use that as kind of a barometer of if this could possibly be a first round player. And looking at DJ Turner, he ran much faster. He's 5'11". Yes, he's not the biggest guy, but can you play man-to-man with him and get away with it? And the answer is yes. So that's why I had DJ Turner, and then Keitrell Clark, like you said, man, just another guy. I just like the guy, man. He's just competitive. He's just a football player, man.
No, he's a good football player, man. He's willing to come in, and we talk about tackling, like, you don't have to be the most sound tackler. But when I look at Keitrell Clark, I see a sound tackler. Even though he's not the biggest guy on the field, man, he has just that he plays with that dog mentality. Like, sometimes guys we label them as dogs because they chirp a lot. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, yeah, you could be a dog, but if you just chirping, that means you're a chihuahua, because chihuahuas don't got no bark to the, they don't got no bite to the bark. But, when you actually play like it, Keitrell has, not just the bark, but he bites back as well. So I really like what he brings to the table. Fluid guy. I think another guy that's really good in man coverage, footwork, smooth transitions, everything. That's what DJ Turner brings as well. And he can play inside and out. He can play man-to-man coverage in the slot as a nickel defender, which some people are going to, label him as because of his height and weight and arm length. But either way, man, you get yourself a high-level football player that started to make plays on the football more, whether it was recovering fumbles, forcing fumbles, or just picking the ball off, Keith. He's starting to make more plays on the football this year. And typically when you stay in phase, you're going to be around the football in coverage. Now it's all up to you to make the right plays on it. So I think this is a young man that no one really wants to, they don't really talk about a lot, but I love him. And of course, you talked about Emmanuel Forbes. He's one of my guys too. Another one, he's a little bit of a gambler. I think, ball hawk gambler, Marcus Peters type, where it's like, all right, Trayvon Diggs-esque, where it's like, all right, now, you gotta rein in a little bit, but I love the way he plays. He plays tough. Yes, he's people look at his size and he's skinny, but he don't mind throwing. Listen, he knows how to chop a big tree down. If you're your ball carrier or receiver, he's gonna take your legs out in terms of tackling, and he's got tremendous ball skills.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I think that like this cornerback class, like we talked about, is a really, really, it's a deep class, right? But we said it needs to be very specific on,
Yeah.
just where they kind of, where they go, right? Like this is not they're not a bunch of scheme transcended type of cornerbacks, man. And you talked about Emmanuel Forbes, really good football player. You know, he kind of reminded me of DP a little bit watching him. This is a throwback name, man. And I think Raider fans are going to be a lot more happy when I say this than Eagles fans. Namdi Asamoah a little bit. Ball skills, like
I
just the
like
ball
that.
skills. Namdi was a little bit, he was kind of thin. He played off coverage a lot, kind of a zone corner, take some chances, do some different things. So he reminds me of Namdi Asamoah. I don't know why that name kept popping in my head when I watched him. But look, DP, man, we wrapped up the corners. We talked cornerback play, but this is what we're gonna do. This safety class, man. Nobody's talking about the safeties, and we're gonna throw out some names. We're not gonna even rank them, but we're gonna throw out some names because who knows? Like we may be starting in the third round, well, second round probably before we see our first safety. But man, there are some guys that if you need a specific role filled on the back end of your defense, they can't do that. So man, coming up next, we're going to talk about these safeties, throw out a couple names that people should definitely know about heading into the 2023 NFL draft.
Keith, safeties are this is an ever-changing position because for a long time, Keith, it was, back in the earlier days when we were younger, it was, man, you wanted those heavy hitters. You wanted the Hayes of the world. Those guys who were going to knock your heads off. And then as the rules started to change, then teams started looking for the Ed Reeds, the Earl Thomases, right? The Malik Hookers, where hey, I need me a free safety that can cover sideline to sideline. I need that 4-3 type of range and instincts to cover the whole back end when we play in cover one type of coverages. But now it's about a lot of hybrids, Keith. And this class has a lot of guys that really fit that mold.
Yeah, I agree. And so you talk about the back end of the defense, DP. I don't know if they have that guy. I don't know if we're talking about a guy that's playing the one high situation and he's just roaming the field and he's covering sideline to sideline. I don't know if that's this guy. Like even when we talk about safety like Brian Branch, who everyone knows, this is more of a lower hole player. But yeah. So I think everyone knows about Brian Branch, safety from Alabama. What I want to do is talk about a couple other guys, and I'm gonna immediately start with his teammate. And I'm gonna talk about Alabama safety Jordan Battle. When you're talking about another low hole player, he does the same exact things, in my opinion, that Brian Branch does. What happened was they flipped positions. Jordan Battle moved back to the free safety position, so he was away from the ball. Brian Branch moved closer to the line of scrimmage, so they kind of swapped positions. But if you go back to the 2021 film, you will see Jordan much more active. He had a pick six against Mississippi State. You see a guy that has some ball skills. So if you're looking for a strong safety, Jordan is a bigger body also. He's 6'1", 200-plus pounds. They ran the same 40 time. So if you're looking for a bigger body, I think Jordan Battle would be that guy if you're looking for like a strong safety S-type football player. So what guy do you have just kind of, a name that you want to put out there for people to watch?
Oh man, I would really stick my neck out for Jamie Robinson from Florida State, Keith. Athletic kid, versatile. He reminds me a lot of the young man from Baylor last year, Jalen Petrie, who went to the Houston Texans, where you could play him in two high safety looks. You can walk him up into the nickel. He could play against, man-to-man against tight ends. He can help you in the run game as well. He could blitz, as a free runner, right? When you want to really send the extra defender from the secondary and help you disguise coverages. And he's a smart kid, too. I like his instincts as well, Keith. And it's just, I wonder why he doesn't have just more discussion or discourse around him and his draft, and when it comes time to this 2023 NFL draft. But listen, my slogan, the more you can do, the more time I can put you on the field, the more plays that you earn, and just the more creativity and flexibility you give me as a defensive play caller, where you think about Adrian Phillips, right? Safety that played for the New England Patriots. When they be on third downs, Keith, because he was such a good tackler, and pair that with his athleticism being the DB, they would pull an extra linebacker off the field and make him a big dime backer. And he's in the middle of the defense, sitting there just in case, especially playing against a Josh Allen, right? You know what I mean? You're dealing with a mobile quarterback, or you got Tua Tagovailoa and those that RPO and glance game that they run in Miami. and then all the different bevy of weapons that the Jets have. You have a guy that can play in the nickel, or you could play him inside, between the hashes, and let him kind of, especially against running backs too. When you're dealing with running backs, as we see now, so prevalent to get these guys in the passing game. Yeah, a lot of these linebackers, they're not really that skilled or either athletic enough to play man-to-man, but the Jamie Robinson, similar to Adrian Phillips and Jalen Petrie, they can cover all these, just a bevy of positions, man. And I love that skill set, and I just love that flexibility that it's going to give me as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, okay. So look, I'm gonna roll through some more names. I'm gonna read off probably about 4 names, and we'll just pick one or two to talk about, right? So I'm gonna start with Sidney Brown, safety from Illinois, right? Then I'm gonna do Christopher Smith, safety from Georgia. I'm gonna do Antonio Johnson, safety from Texas A&M. And I'll throw in Jay Ward, safety from LSU. Which one of those guys jump off to you? It's like, man, as a guy, like, okay, I like what I can possibly get from him.
Oh man, Christopher Smith, my boy down in Georgia, man.
I like
I really love his tape. Keith, this is a young man that you could tell he's studious. He's a student of the game. You go back to back week 1 openers in college football for them. And he had a pick on the same exact route, 2 different opponents. They tried him with the same concept, Keith, and he picked both quarterbacks off. 2021, it was DJ Uvert in Clemson. This year was Bo Nix in Oregon. It was the exact same play call. And they ran it for whatever reason. I don't know why Oregon ran it again after seeing what he did to DJU in Clemson. You know what I mean? But it's just, you see that this young man is so smart, so instinctive, and he's always around the ball. He is an undersized guy. He's not the biggest, doesn't have the greatest length, right? But he plays physical.
I've seen enough of him, DP, where I'm kind of like, throw that out, right? Like, I may not take him in the first round and maybe not the second round, right? But when I draft him, maybe back into the second to early third, I feel good about him. And I text you, DP. Remember, I was talking about it. I'm like, I'm getting Carl Joseph, Von Bell, you know what I'm saying? With like those type of vibes from him, because he's not athletic testing through the roof. He's not the biggest guy, but he throws his body around. He's physical in his approach, right? And he has some ball skills that you see. So I think essentially this is a guy you're either going to put him at free safety, or he's going to play some man-to-man in a nickel and show up against the run, and you like him in those situations. So he's definitely a good football player, and I think he's a guy that, you talk about the instincts, all of the things. I'm expecting him to play early on for a football team, man. So now I thought he was definitely somebody we can highlight. Then we talk about, like we said, we have Jay Ward, safety from LSU, someone that's going to show up. I want to talk about this guy, DP, Quad Martin, a guy that everyone's talking about. I see the buzz about him is picking up as kind of a hybrid football player. How do you feel about Quad?
Man, I like him, man. Over from Illinois. Illinois had so many studs in that back end of that secondary. It's incredible. But like, I think it's Tavius. But like, with him, man, he's well built. Good instincts and man-to-man coverage, can play up high in terms of 2 high safety looks, good athleticism. I think he jumped 44 inches in the vertical. Explosive young man, Keith, but he will come down and hit. He's good in zone. I like him in man-to-man coverage as well as a nickel defender. I think he gives you the ability to cover tight ends as well. I think this is a player that, while his ceiling may not, because he's played a lot of football, so he may be already kind of tapped in or capped in terms of his ceiling, but his floor, to me, his floor is high, and you get him on day 2, whether it's 3rd round, you select him. I think he could be a day 1 starter for a football team.
Okay, hey, that's a big deal, right? And you think about a guy like Kirby Joseph, who came from, was it Syracuse last year? He came from Syracuse, but you seen how he was able to really turn it on, and he was a name that went fairly unknown. I see some of the same potential from Jartavius Martin, man. So I'm gonna throw out one other name, 2 names for me, right? I want to give credit to Sidney Brown, safety from Illinois, another high-level competitor. Reminds me of Antoine Winfield Jr. Antoine Winfield Jr. played on a Super Bowl winning team with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's explosive, quick twitch. Man, that film versus Sam Laporta was a hell of a matchup. Like, go check it out. Classic matchup, man. Watch that game, and then take it back to the cornerbacks real quick. I want to throw one honorable mention name out there, man. Cornerback from South Carolina, Darius Rush, man.
Yes.
And that's it. That's my DBs, man.
Well, I love it. Guy that really stole the show down in Mobile. So I'm all with it, man. I'm all with it, guys. We appreciate y'all, as always, for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen every day, not just every day, but Monday through Friday, man. We appreciate that for all the everydayers. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all as always. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to get podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. Again, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. Tomorrow, we're going to get into those edge rushers and breaking down that position, guys. So stay tuned for that. And for Keith Sanchez on Twitter, you can find him at The Talent Code. I'm Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.